The Galactic Council chamber hummed with quiet deliberation, a gathering of the most powerful beings in the known universe. The air was thick with the scent of burning incense, a tradition maintained for centuries to signify moments of consequence. At the center of the grand circular hall, a holographic image flickered. Two humans, seemingly insignificant against the backdrop of endless space. Admiral Zyrax of the Zalari Dominion leaned forward, his yellow eyes narrowing as he studied the grainy surveillance feed. "Are we certain these two are alone?" His voice, guttural and edged with disdain, echoed through the chamber. A Varathian intelligence officer, his bioluminescent skin pulsing in rhythmic waves, inclined his head. There are no indications of allied vessels in the sector. Their ship is an outdated Terra model, one of their older exploration crafts. They are isolated, defenseless. This is an opportunity to send a message. Zyrax exhaled sharply through his mandibles. The Council had long debated how to handle the growing nuisance of humanity. Too unpredictable, too defiant. Their rapid advancements in technology had become an uncomfortable reality. Yet the dominant species of the galaxy had been hesitant to act. Until now. A demonstration, then, Zyrax murmured. Let their deaths remind their kind of their place. With a flick of his clawed hand, the order was given. The nemesis drifted through the void, a ghost against the black canvas of space. From the outside, it was nothing more than a relic of humanity's past, a relic held together by outdated engineering and the stubborn refusal to surrender to time. Inside, Alex Voss sat in the pilot's chair, his fingers drumming a slow rhythm against the metal armrest. His sharp features were partially illuminated by the soft glow of the ship's console. He was a man forged in war, though he carried the weight of it with the ease of someone who had long accepted its presence in his life. A man who had seen enough battlefields to know when one was being prepared in his honor. 16 warships, Dr. Evelyn Carter murmured beside him, her eyes scanning the incoming fleet on the holographic display. Her voice was calm, detached in a way that spoke of experience rather than ignorance. This feels excessive. Alex smirked, tilting his head slightly as if considering. They always did have a flair for dramatics. Evelyn turned to face him, her auburn hair catching the dim light of the cockpit. "We could leave," she offered, though there was no real belief in the words. He chuckled. "You think they'd let us?" She sighed, leaning back into her seat. "No, I think they want to make an example of us." The nemesis shuddered as the first message came through. The transmission crackled before stabilizing, and Admiral Zyrax's image appeared before them. A towering figure clad in ceremonial war armor, his expression a mixture of arrogance and anticipation. "Humans," Zyrax drawled, as if the word itself was a curse. "Your presence in this sector is a violation of interstellar law. Your species was warned against encroaching on council-protected space." He paused, his mandibles clicking together in calculated menace. "Your defiance has consequences." Alex leaned forward, his fingers laced together. "This isn't council-protected space," he pointed out. "It's an unclaimed system with no strategic value." Zyrax's eyes gleamed with cruel amusement. "The law is what we say it is." Evelyn crossed her arms. "And the punishment?" The Admiral didn't hesitate. "Eradication." The transmission cut. The silence that followed was deafening. Outside the nemesis, the fleet moved into position, a formation that had been perfected over centuries of conquest. Energy weapons warmed, shields activated, a show of force, overwhelming and absolute. Alex exhaled slowly. He could feel Evelyn's gaze on him, waiting. He turned to her, his expression unreadable. "You ready?" he asked. She smiled. It was not the smile of someone facing imminent destruction. It was a smile of someone who knew something the enemy did not. Always. The first barrage hit. The nemesis rocked under the impact, but the shields held. Evelyn's fingers danced across the controls, running calculations, analyzing attack patterns. A second wave followed. This one was meant to cripple. Inside the warships of the Galactic Council, officers watched with anticipation, waiting for the moment the Terran vessel would break apart, for the moment its crew would realize their insignificance. But the nemesis did not break. Instead, it moved. Fast. Too fast. Admiral Zyrax's amusement twisted into confusion as he watched the small, ancient ship weave through his fleet, evading fire with precision that should have been impossible. A third barrage was ordered. The lasers cut through space, seeking their target, yet they struck nothing but empty void. Inside the Nemesis, Evelyn's voice was steady as she read the enemy's reaction times. They're not adapting fast enough. They don't know how, Alex replied, eyes sharp. They've never fought something like us before. For the first time, doubt crept into the minds of the enemy commanders. This wasn't right. A human vessel, no matter how agile, should not be toying with them. Disable their engines, Zyrax snarled to his weapons officer. I want them dead now. Before the order could be carried out, the Nemesis vanished. Zyrax's mandibles clicked in agitation, where a sudden shockwave tore through the fleet. One of the warships, a Zalari cruiser, exploded from within, its core rupturing in an instant. The ripple effect sent two others spiraling into chaos. The fleet's coordinated formation collapsed. Inside the Council warships, panic bloomed. Officers scrambled for answers, frantically scanning for the Terran ship. How had it breached their defenses? How had it disappeared? Zyrax's rage turned to something colder, something uneasy. Find them, he hissed. He did not see the ship reappear behind them. He did not see the targeting systems lock onto his flagship, but he did hear the voice that followed. A single transmission. You shouldn't have done that. And then the Nemesis opened fire. The first explosion was a thing of beauty. A Zalari warship, a towering behemoth of steel and firepower, erupted from within, its core rupturing in a violent cascade of energy. Flames blossomed into the void, consuming the ship in mere seconds before the vacuum silenced its destruction. The shockwave rippled outward, slamming into two neighboring vessels, sending them spiraling out of formation. Admiral Zyrax watched in stunned silence. His mind refused to process what had just happened. A single human ship had vanished, then reappeared behind his fleet, striking with surgical precision. It was impossible. It was unnatural. Where are they? He snarled, spinning toward his sensor officer. The Varathian's bioluminescent skin pulsed erratically, his fingers dancing across the console. I don't know, the officer stammered. They keep phasing in and out of our scanners. I can't get a lock. Zyrax's mandibles clicked in frustration. Keep firing. Overwhelm them. The remaining warships adjusted their positions, unleashing a relentless barrage of plasma fire, missile salvos, and high-frequency disruptor beams. Energy tore through space, illuminating the darkness with deadly brilliance. But the Nemesis was not where they aimed. It weaved through the chaos, dipping and rolling in perfect synchronicity with the attacks, evading the death meant for it with almost inhuman precision. The small ship flickered, disappearing for split seconds before reappearing elsewhere, an unpredictable ghost, untouchable and merciless. Inside the cockpit, Alex Voskrin, hands steady on the controls. His eyes, sharp and calculating, never left the battlefield. He wasn't just flying the Nemesis. He was orchestrating a performance. You're enjoying this, Evelyn muttered beside him. Fingers gliding across her interface, algorithms scrolling too fast for the eye to follow. He chuckled. A little. It's been a while since I've had an audience. She shook her head, suppressing a smirk before refocusing on the console. The ship's AI, Echo 9, was running at full capacity now, processing millions of calculations per second, predicting enemy maneuvers before they even executed them. Evelyn tapped a command, her voice cool. Echo, initiate disruption protocol. Let's see how well the Council fights when they can't see. A pulse rippled outward from the Nemesis, invisible to naked eye but devastating to the enemy fleet systems. Within moments, targeting arrays scrambled, communications garbled into static, engines flickered with irregular power surges. On Zyrax's bridge, chaos erupted. Sir, our tracking systems are failing. We've lost navigation. Primary weapons are unresponsive. Zyrax's clawed hand slammed against the console. What have they done? The answer came in the form of another explosion. A battlecruiser, blind and vulnerable, drifted too close to an ally, just as its engines malfunctioned. The resulting collision sent both ships into a tailspin before one's reactor overloaded, tearing it apart from the inside. Zyrax's breathing turned ragged. This wasn't a battle. This was an execution. A burst of static crackled through his private channel. Admiral Zyrax. Came a voice, smooth and calm. He knew it immediately. He had heard it before, years ago, during the height of humanity's secret wars. A ghost from the past. His blood ran cold. Voss! You remember me, Alex said, his voice almost conversational. That's flattering. Zyrax's talons curled into fists. You should be dead. Funny, Alex mused. I was thinking the same about you. Zyrax's mind raced, pieces falling into place. Voss, Commander, Alex Voss. Humanity's greatest strategist, presumed killed in the last Terran War. And Carter, Dr. Evelyn Carter, the scientist responsible for the Nemesis Initiative, a program the Council had buried years ago. And now they were here. Zyrax had attacked them. A terrible realization settled in his gut. The Council had assumed the Nemesis was an outdated vessel because their records showed it as such. But the Council had been wrong. The Nemesis was not outdated. It was ahead of its time, and it was unstoppable. Zyrax bared his teeth. What do you want? Simple, Alex said. I want you to understand what's about to happen. Evelyn's fingers danced over the console once more. Echo 9 executed its next protocol. And then the Nemesis disappeared again. Panic rippled through the remaining warships. Where did they go? They're in our system. They're inside our defenses. The truth dawned on them too late. The Nemesis reappeared within their fleet's formation, too close for any ship to fire, without hitting their own allies. Alex's voice came through every enemy comm channel. Checkmate. The Nemesis unleashed hell. Particle cannons erupted in rapid succession, lancing through hulls, targeting reactor cores, detonating fuel reserves. The small ship moved like a specter, striking with precision, never staying in one place long enough to be caught. Ship after ship fell, their captains screaming in desperation, unable to mount any defense against an opponent that had already outmaneuvered them before the battle even began. Zyrax stood motionless on his bridge, his warship now one of the last remaining. Around him, his officers trembled, staring at their doomed fleet. He had to retreat, had to escape. Evasive maneuvers, he roared. Get us out of here. But it was too late. His ship shook violently, warning sirens blaring as the Nemesis reappeared directly above them, its weapons trained on the flagship's bridge. Zyrax stared up at the incoming fire, his mind finally comprehending what had happened. They had made a mistake. They had thought they were the hunters, but they were the prey. The last thing he saw was the burning light of the Nemesis cannons. Then, everything went dark. The wreckage of the once mighty Galactic Council fleet drifted in silence, burning embers flickering like dying stars against the endless void. The remnants of warships, shattered and broken, tumbled aimlessly, their crews reduced to memories. The vast battlefield, so recently alive with the hum of energy weapons and the roar of explosions, had gone eerily still. Inside the Nemesis, Alex Voss exhaled slowly, fingers still resting on the controls. His gaze lingered on the debris field ahead, his expression unreadable. The battle was over. The enemy was obliterated. And yet, there was no satisfaction in victory, only the quiet certainty that this was far from the end. Evelyn Carter studied the tactical readout, the aftermath displayed in cold data streams. 17 warships had entered this battle. Only one remained intact. A single crippled cruiser, its engines flickering weakly, barely clinging to life. Alex's lips twitched. Looks like we have a survivor. Evelyn nodded, tapping at her console. They're hailing us. The transmission crackled before stabilizing, revealing a battered and bloodied Admiral Zyrax. His ceremonial armor was scorched, his once proud posture reduced to something defeated. His yellow eyes burned with a mix of hatred and reluctant awe. You! Zyrax's voice was hoarse, strained from smoke inhalation. You don't understand what you've done. Alex leaned forward, his tone cool. Oh, I think I understand perfectly. Zyrax's mandibles clicked in frustration. The Council will not let this go unanswered. You've made yourselves enemies of the most powerful force in the galaxy. Evelyn scoffed, arms crossed. And yet, here you are, alone. Zyrax bared his teeth. More will come. More fleets. More admirals. You cannot fight them all. Alex smirked, his voice like steel. You're assuming we'll be running. A flicker of doubt crossed Zyrax's face. Barely perceptible, but there nonetheless. You should have never come after us, Evelyn added, her voice quieter, but no less dangerous. You thought we were just two insignificant humans in an outdated ship. She gestured to the wreckage outside. Tell me, Admiral, do we look insignificant now? Zyrax's breathing was ragged. He had underestimated them. Everyone had. The Terrans were supposed to be a species in decline, scattered and struggling. The Council had long viewed them as a minor inconvenience, a remnant of old wars barely worth considering. And yet, here they stood, having reduced an elite battle group to wreckage. You should kill me, Zyrax muttered, his voice bitter. It would be merciful. Alex considered him for a long moment. The truth was, he had no reason to let the Admiral live, but a message needed to be sent. No, he said finally. You're going to go back to the Council. Zyrax's eyes narrowed. And tell them what? Alex's smirk was slow, deliberate. Tell them the war they think they've been avoiding? It's already here. Silence stretched between them, the weight of the words settling like a stone. Zyrax clenched his jaw, his pride warring with the reality before him. But in the end, he knew there was nothing left to fight with. Without another word, the transmission cut. The remaining cruiser, barely holding itself together, veered away, disappearing into the void. Evelyn let out a breath, watching the ship fade from sensors. You think they'll listen? Alex's expression darkened. No, but they'll be afraid. She studied him for a moment. And us. He leaned back in his chair, his gaze distant. We make sure they stay afraid. The Nemesis turned, engines humming as it vanished into the stars, leaving behind only ruin and the promise of a reckoning yet to come.